Hello and welcome to a new series. Last year, we completed a series of short games and shared them with you via YouTube and itch.io. This year, we'll be focusing on games with a bit more depth and replayability. With that being said, here's an overview of our next project. First on deck is an artillery type game, where two stationary players duel to the death by firing projectiles at each other, until one of them runs out of health points. If you're old like us, you might remember this game called Bang Bang, where you set the angle and velocity to shoot. Or if you played flash games online, then you've surely seen Bowman 2, where you drag your mouse to determine the angle and power. So what we're going for is something like Bowman 2. Here you can see two knights casually exchanging arrows as they did in the days before the internet. What we would like to do is to add some more gameplay mechanics. The plan is to give players abilities, for example block or use more powerful weapons. Something else we plan are having more characters like this Tinker for example. You can notice that the left knight has more features like sounds and aim power. We're still experimenting with a new game engine, so we're getting used to it. So what tools are we using? You may have recognized it from the footage so far. We're using GDevelop. In case you never heard of GDevelop, it's a free open source cross-platform game engine. It's one of these so-called no-code game engines, where you program your game's logic via event sheets and optionally some JavaScript. So, why do we choose GDevelop specifically? Because one of our objectives when creating games was to share them in a way that's easily accessible. The easiest way to accomplish this was to export to the web, since that will put the least amount of friction between the game and the player. And so far we learned that the hard way. Just because an engine claims it has web support, doesn't mean it's any good. Godot is a prime example of this. GDevelop, on the other hand, has native support for the web. In fact, the GDevelop editor itself is a web application. I can, for example, open the Chrome developer tools even in the desktop app. Despite it being and shipping web apps, it can still export to all major desktop and mobile platforms. Based on what we've seen so far from playing around with the engine, as well as third-party examples, web support is superb and will result in a much better end product compared to our previous Godot games. Another advantage of GDevelop is the event sheet approach to programming, which allows designers such as myself to add functionality to the game without having any programming experience. We're still new to the engine, so we won't comment any further until we get more exposure to it. Just as a side note, that if we hadn't picked GDevelop, the next candidate would have been Phaser, which is a framework for making web games. It doesn't come with a visual editor, just a vast set of libraries. You can think of it like Monogame, but exclusively for the web.
One more change you can expect going forward is the format of our videos. As YouTube novices, we didn't really know how to approach things last year. Our first series was all over the place, half tutorial, half devlog. We didn't really have a clear vision of what we wanted the videos to be at this point. Our second series mostly consisted of devlogs, showcasing changes made since the previous video. The main reason for this is that we only remembered to record footage a day before the video was due. So naturally, we didn't capture any of the development process, but instead we only showed new features, before and after side-by-side comparisons, and pre-written code snippets were relevant. So in order to fix this, we decided to record our third series literally as we were developing the game. As a result, the third series was a tutorial on how to create a golf game from scratch. Since we were still learning the Godot engine, this resulted in scrapping and redoing a lot of the footage since the development process involved a lot of learning and trial and error. It also put pressure on us to make the footage perfect on each recording, despite the fact that we didn't always know what we were doing. At times, it felt like we were more focused on making a good video rather than making a good game. Naturally, this ended up being quite frustrating and took a toll on the pace of the project since we were both put off from working on it. The project was initially scheduled to last a month or two, but ended up taking 6. Although it was rewarding to finally get it out, we acknowledged that the tutorial format was a poor choice since we weren't qualified to teach something that we were beginners in ourselves. That's why this year, starting with this game, we're going to prioritize game development over videos. We'll still be releasing videos on a consistent schedule, but we're reverting to the old devlog format. However, since we'll be applying all the lessons we've learned in writing, recording, and editing videos last year, you can expect a higher level of quality. So, what would a devlog entail? New game features from version to version, how we utilize the engine to implement features, challenges we face and how we overcame them, designing and creating the artwork, and general game design stuff like how and why we made certain gameplay decisions. That covers the introduction. We're excited to kick 2024 off with a new game and a new engine. Let us know if you have any feature suggestions for the game. Thanks for watching and see you next time.